My guest on this episode of the Neil Wilkins podcast is here to discuss not what AI can do, but what it changes about humans finding and trusting information. Stephan Bajaio is one of the original co-founders of Conductor, one of the world's leading enterprise SEO platforms. He has 25 years experience in digital and has spent his career very much at the intersection of search behavior and human intent. And he has the belief, and this is the belief he keeps coming back to, that no one lies to their search bar. So this is going to be a very, very interesting conversation to find out about marketing in a mindful sense, the practice of actually listening to the signal of search instead of just broadcasting over it. Stephan, welcome to the show.
Neil, I think I'm going to fall over in my chair. The first thing I'll say is thank you. But the second thing I'm going to say is you actually hit the last name. I mean, without me prompting you beforehand, the fact you could say Bajaio is like, poof, I should fall out of my chair.
So we're on a roll already.
Whether it's Stephan and then Bajaio, very difficult. So you immediately come into this conversation with brownie points from me for whatever it's worth.
I feel honored. I feel honored. Thank you so much.
Let's start off with that.
We started well. We started well. And this whole thing about kind of trust, humans, people aren't talking about this. They're talking about the tech right now, aren't they?
Yeah. They, I get it. I was brought up in digital in like the early 2000s in the dot-com boom and bust. So I saw what happens when this all kind of goes awry when, and it's funny to me that not enough people are recognizing a pattern that's emerging right now when companies are overvalued by technology that's not fully understood or that the populace hasn't even been ready for yet. I'd like to take everyone back for a moment. Sorry if you don't mind going on a trip with me, Neil. We'll get in the time machine and go back to 2000, right? I'm an intern. I'm in college. I'm being asked with a large potential salary. At the time, I think it was like $80,000 to leave school. They'd pay for my school at night. Just leave school as a junior and you can finish up in New York. I was in DC at American University. I had interned, by the way, at this company, US Interactive, for like every break I had for like 2 years straight. So I saw it go from like 30 people to 500 or 600 people, and from a New York office and a Pennsylvania King of Prussia office to global, London, Hong Kong, you name it, everywhere, right? Okay. So one, businesses were growing at a rate that was untenable at the time. I think we are seeing that to some degree, right? It was based on a technology no one really understood yet. The internet, right? So people were asking us to help them build the first e-commerce websites on the web. This is in 99. This is in 98. Remember, at the beginning of this, people were scared to put their credit cards online. You had to literally put a logo on websites to be like, this is a safe site to put your credit card on, because the thought of doing something online like that was just unimaginable. You still sent checks to the bank when you were paying your credit card. You were not in a world like this. This was a different world. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because we're in, and companies, by the way, the stock market was killing it. I was being billed at like $270, $75 an hour. I lived at home with my parents during that time when I wasn't at school, and I would commute into New York City, and I would, like a lawyer, be billing for my time on the train. I was working on the train on the way in and working on the train on the way out. I was like a lawyer. And the more billable hours, the happier everyone was. And everyone was doing super well. The economy was, and companies were valued at these things. And everyone's saying, these are fake valuations. It's impossible. It's not possible to maintain this. We can't keep going this way. Well, if that sounds familiar, it's a little bit of what's been going on with AI right now, right? If you remember, when I tell you that people were scared to put their credit cards into websites, that's before credit cards were losing trillions of dollars to identification fraud online. Like an entire industry / trillions of dollars didn't even exist to be stolen from a model at the time. So the problems that the technology was going to create weren't even clear when the technology was first put out. And I want to bring you back to the fact we did not have streaming video at that time. We were still on dial-ups. We got our internet access via CD-ROM. For those that don't know what that was, don't worry. It's just another piece of hardware you don't need to know about, that was sent to you in the mail, and You've Got Mail was something that was very common to hear, right? So that's how we access the internet. This is that time in AI. This is what's happening right now. People that are going wild saying this is going to change us, yes, it is, but not in the ways, shapes, and forms that we're describing it as. If you think a chatbot is the best use of AI, it's like, for my Gen Xers out there, it's the deep, 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 deep. That's the version we're looking at. It's the slow loading page that doesn't load in full. It's the SVGA. It's the dial-up modem. This is not the one you build for. This is the distraction point. This is like claiming you have a great MySpace page and saying you're future-proof, right? That's not what we're in the business of doing. If anything, the internet revolutionized everything. We can agree upon that point. People were also saying people will be out of business. How can we do this? No one will ever spend online. Or if they do, what if they spend all their money online? They never go to brick and mortars anymore. We saw that too, right? There was a time where we were wondering whether or not the big box stores would exist. Carphone Warehouse in the UK, in the US, Best Buy. We wondered whether or not Amazon, this little book thing, turned into this massive global thing that we didn't understand. All of these things will happen. But to worry about them right now is a fool's errand. And to go and think that your first actor to try and quote unquote rank in the LLM version of AI is also a fool's errand. I would not spend my time, talent, effort, or treasure there. That's not where I think you should be spending your time today.
So that's a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of people, because, I mean, I think people are quite confused about what they should be confused about. I think it is almost to that kind of level, isn't it? I mean, I'm talking across a whole range of industries, different levels of marketer, business owners particularly, I think, are just sort of thinking, oh, I can create this, crazy clever new image or little video clip. Isn't this amusing? That's AI. And yet, as you're absolutely saying, it's not even the scratch on the scratch of the surface, is it?
No, and you also have to remember the adoption curve, right? So, like, think about it this way. When Google first came out, it was, and any search engine for that matter, right? And I've lived in search engine optimization for, 2 decades, decade and a half, helping the largest companies in the world, Fortune 500, Internet Retailer 1000, show up. But more importantly, actually speaking truth to power and talking to them more often about their dysfunction and about their lack of understanding of what their consumer actually cared about and how to find their consumer correctly and solve their problem. That was always the big one, right? But if we kind of step back for a second, I'm rather shocked at folks' inability to recognize the problem of the moment, right? And the problem of the moment is you have this interpretation engine occurring over here that is distracting a lot of people into proposed action. To your point, an image generation, we're not really sure how to use it. A lot of people are adopting it to like do fun things with their 5-year-old, or to research something, but not really like a search engine, and it's a different thing, and it doesn't really work the same way. And we're kind of using it the way we wish Siri would have worked in many cases, but hasn't evolved to, but is about to, based on what I see coming with Apple's relationship with Gemini and all of that stuff. But what I'd say is, think about the adoption of a search engine. When they first came on board, it was because there was just a lot of web stuff out there, and there was no way to kind of sift and sort through it, let alone classify it or judge it. So it became a judgment engine, right? We wanted to judge what's the best. So when you put in something, it would give you from first to least. LLMs don't do that. LLMs do not go from highest to lowest, highest confidence to lowest confidence. They don't tell you that. Confidence is mixed in the wash. So you don't really know what you're getting. And so the adoption of search engines went like this. It went up, then down. Why did it go down? Because at first we thought Google was God. I know that's a weird thing to say, but that's the way we acted. if Google said it, it must be true, right? I mean, it was like, if that's on TV, there used to be a time where it was like, if that's on TV, it must be true. Well, if Google said it, it must be true. They must be the best at it, right? I find the best results when I search using Google. So what's number one must be the best at something. Here's the problem. Who's the best oncologist? Is it really telling you who has the highest rate of curing cancer? No, it doesn't. And as people come to terms with that and understood that search results were manipulatable, that it wasn't really about the businesses as much as about the websites, right, that reflected the businesses. And Google did a really good job over decades of trying to make that symbiotic. But the reality is it was still whether a web page was sending the right signals that would map back to what someone was looking for, not whether or not it was really the best business or really, this was not the Better Business Bureau in the US. This is not a way of judging it that way. So what happened? Consumer confidence dropped. What the hell? I click on these. Oh, those are ads. I don't understand. And then what happened after that? After people realized like, oh, these are manipulatable and so forth. Did they stop using Google? No. They became smarter and started adopting it more frequently. Their search results, rather than searching the word shoes, you actually had to put in sneakers, high heels, or what you were looking for, right? Nike Air Jordan Max red, right? Like you had to be more descriptive. And so you will see the user behavior started to change. People got smarter. The sheep weren't just going to slaughter, or maybe the cows or what. I don't know what gets slaughtered. Anyway, I'm not a killing guy. But point being, it wasn't happening in the same way anymore. We are going to see the same exact thing with LLMs. All of the marketers think that everyone is using LLM all the time, everywhere, the same way they are. The mass populace has not adopted this technology yet. And if they have, they've used it for 1,000 of the wrong reasons. So when they do start that adoption, they are going to get hallucinations. They are going to get misinformed. They are going to get things that don't map back to the reality. They are going to get burned by not QAing their content, right? And what'll happen is there'll be that confidence drop again. And then over time, it'll come back as agents. And when I say as agents, it won't be agents as in, oh, we're all coding our own agents. It'll be agents like Siri. It'll be like Siri coming in and saying, well, this seems kind of stupid. Neil and I are going to go meet for dinner. And his open table reservation is looking at Waze. And my Waze says I'm going to be late. And based on Google Calendar that has the fact that we're meeting for dinner, it tells him we might want to reschedule for later. That restaurant doesn't have any availability for later, but there is another sushi restaurant. I love sushi. I hope you do too, Neil. That happens to be like about a 10-minute walk from there. In fact, if you don't want to walk, here's a parking lot using Spot Hero that you can go, and the fact that you both reserve it will get you a 5% discount. That is the way that AI is supposed to think. Predictively, intuitively, and as part of what we're doing. Are we going to still have to build the structures to make that a reality? Yes. Is that going to be a core part of marketing and product? Absolutely. Does that mean we should all think that they're coming for our jobs tomorrow and that we're worthless? No. Fight me on it, but I mean, I'll meet someone outside on that one. I'll die on that hill for now.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because the number of different angles we can approach this thinking from. You can approach it from, okay, I've got to get the kind of the content that I'm producing. If I need to be found and seen as a brand, as a thought leader, whatever, I've got to get that content appropriate, not only for the human who is searching using AI, but also for the agent who is searching on behalf of the human. So do I begin there, or do I just kind of trust that the human's going to prompt the AI to find somebody like me appropriately because the quality of their prompting is perfect? Or do I also make an assumption that the agent is going to then almost create its own algorithm to find me? There's a lot of kind of human AI trust issues going on here, aren't there, really? Because who can or what can you actually trust?
So, Neil, it's both. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's both. All right. My Uncle Ellie, wise man, lived to 104. He didn't stop working. Working meant getting in a cab in New York City, driving to his office, being dropped off, looking at shuffling a few papers for an hour and getting back in a cab and going home. But when you're 98, I think you get a pass, right? This is also a very smart man who learned 11 languages. And at 102, he wanted to learn Chinese. He wasn't going to China, but he wanted to learn Chinese in order to speak to I think it was the woman who came in and cleaned his apartment. That said, he told me, I asked him during one of our lunch, I'd leave the office and go have lunch with him. His apartment was not too far from my office at Conductor. And I asked him, Uncle Ellie, what's the secret to life? And he said, recognizing what you can control. Right? You can control how you respond to it, but you can't control it. Right? So, really good point. Now, let's bring that back to marketing. Sage words, and we'll try to apply them. You control your website. There's an assumption of that. The larger your company is, the less true that is, by the way. And that's where a lot of my work had to exist in trying to say, hey, you guys aren't even getting your own stuff together. Forget what someone else is saying. You can't get your messaging, your content, your go-to-market, all of that stuff correct and well-structured in a way that anyone can interpret it, let alone a search engine, now an LLM, or anything else that the future technology is going to bring. So rather than chasing an algorithm, which, by the way, if you try to chase an algorithm like I've had clients do for the last decade and a half, algorithms can change, and used to change at least, more often than the US tax code. That's like 500 and something major changes to the algorithm in a year. That's more than once a day. So you're not chasing that. That's crazy town. Don't do that. But what is being interpreted is at your control. So what is being interpreted? What are you producing as content, right? And then the second part to that equation, right? Once you've kind of, and by the way, let me step back. When you think about what to create, you really need to think about the problems that consumers have. I don't even like using the word consumers. Think about your audience. Your audience has a need. Are you solving it or selling it? If you're selling it, I don't know. Not a lot of people need more selling in their life. A lot more people need solving, though. And in a world of AI and technology, and let's call it decision fatigue, like right now, I am in an embarrassment of riches of technology. I can have a shovel, not that I need one, a shovel delivered to my door within hours of probably any color you can imagine. I don't know why I need a pink shovel, but I need a pink shovel, and I can have it at my door within an hour. That is just too much, right? It's too much decision fatigue. It's what color should my shovel be? Like I didn't have to worry about that before. They come in these two colors and we're out of that color. So here it is. It's a shovel. Use it, right? We're in a world of that right now. A lot of that. Consumers feel that. AI is confusing that. AI content is just filling the world full of like nonsensical stuff too. And it's hard to tell the quality and the humanity from the non. So if you can be human and create your content in an effective way, awesome. Extra points, by the way, on the creating your own content, if you recognize AI as a medium by which to use your content rather than a channel. So by that, I mean, you know how this podcast right now that Neil has can probably be transcribed? He could use it as a blog post. He can social snippet and send it out that actually adds people to the folks who are following him on all the different channels he shares it on. He could ask me a question. He asked 5 other guests, create a roundup out of that and do that. He could even, if he wanted to, take it to the extent of like building out images, doing all sorts of interesting stuff using this content, right? We've heard of this. Use all parts of the animal, taking a piece of content and getting the most miles you can, kilometers, out of this as you could, correct? Okay, cool. So we all know this. The extra credit is for those that recognize that you can create an interactive element using it. So you can go and take something that was a blog post that you're hoping an executive is going to read. Like in my case, it's how many blog posts can actually be created within a month because you think you have one writer, therefore one a week. But the reality is, if your subject matter expert needs to be called upon, if you need to do rounds of reviews, if you're trying to make it rank organically in a very hard place, the word count, all of these things should factor into a slide model, which I created, that allows an executive to just do this and then understand why it might take longer. Bingo! Way easier for them to consume than reading my 3-page dissertation on why you need to do that. Now, does that not mean both of those elements should exist? Yes. Do you guys think I know how to code a a calculator with sliders that looks pretty and does all this stuff? No. So that's completely vibe coded, didn't require me to go learn a bunch of stuff. The field has been leveled in that regard. Great. Now, the other side of the equation, sorry, Neil, you'll get a word and I promise. The other side of the equation, what the heck is showing up? So if you want to know how you're being considered, you need to do a dipstick. I call this web presence intelligence because let's face it, there's not enough acronyms in our space. But WPI, as I'll refer to it, web presence intelligence, is the idea that you are not the answer, but we can tell you all the places answers are being provided. Now, once you know that, both in search engines and LLMs about a topic that matters to your business, the more you understand that landscape, the more you can, as a marketer, can decide where and how you want to be a part of the conversation. A Reddit thread is there, great. If you're in B2B, where's your subject matter expert to go answer? Not sell, solve. Are we going to solve on the Reddit page that gets seen in Google quite frequently and ranks super well? They made a deal with Reddit. Or the fact that the LLMs cite these all the time. Oh, look, there's a video showing up in the LLM results and also coming from YouTube, and we could advertise on that specific video. Why wouldn't we? We know our audience is finding their way there, right? The SEO's answer to the equation was, I want to show up. The business's answer is, why aren't we showing up? My answer is, you're not supposed to show up. You should build, buy, and borrow your way into these conversations because you cannot be the answer, but you can be aware of where answers are provided. And the more aware you are, the more actually, funny enough, it's a flywheel that then influences Google and the LLMs because those citations and those mentions of you and the fact that your brand is in all these different places empowers your business and actually performs better in the LLMs, in the search engines. So it's a complete flywheel. And by the way, that is where I would worry and spend my time.
So I want to come back to the whole thought leadership kind of branding sort of approach in just a moment, but I can't leave that little moment when you were talking about this word interactive, because it feels to me then that you're advocating the future is going to be less about consuming. I hate the word consumer as well, but let's talk about consuming content and information. It's going to be less about consuming it. And again, the trust is obviously going to be inherent in that. If you wish to consume something, you obviously would want to be trusting what you see, but much more about interacting with it. So you're creating these vibe coded apps, widgets, landing pages, whatever you want to call those, to enable somebody to actually interact with your content. Is that kind of what I'm picking up here, that the value of that is, one, something we've never really been able to afford at scale before, but two, it's something that you and I as non-coding engineers can actually do as business people, as marketers, because it literally is the powers in the prompt with vibe coding. Have I got that right?
Yes, but yes, a huge, massive red X through this but. So please listen, folks. There's another side to this. If you treat AI as an easy button, you will fail. Anything that is just, I press a button, I put a prompt in, and that's it, you will fail. The problem that exists, I've noticed within that, is that when you tell someone that something was generated by AI, there is no difference in their mind between one prompt being put in and spitting out something that looks beautiful. Looking beautiful and being accurate are two different things. And what's interesting, and I heard this earlier, there was someone who was saying they were in a meeting and an executive was handed like a 40-page dissertation on something. And the executive said, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing. This is whatever. The executive was not an expert in the space. So the executive doesn't realize that paragraph 3 is completely, forgive my French, full of shit, right? And therefore, like, they wouldn't know. The true value, the expertise is in knowing that paragraph 3 is nonsense, right? Or paragraph 4. That expertise is lost in the wash. And so if you had spent hours refining it, you and I, Neil, could both crank out One of us could do a push button version, and one of us could do a refined, really well thought out, like checked all the facts, did all the work. And to the eye, they're going to seem very similar, right? They're going to seem like similar product. But the reality is the easy button will not suit your purpose, because a person who has a true problem will see through that. A person who has a need will see through that, right? It's as simple as this. Let's say you do ABM campaigns, okay? So account-based marketing. You only have, let's say, 50 targets to go after. If we were to take the call notes from our calls and mix those up into our favorite LLM models, as well as a library of information about each client or prospect, and we were to build a custom landing page based on that, 100% personalized for that prospect, if we let the engine do its own thing, it could cite a location, a name, a something about the business that was completely faulty, and it could destroy the entire credibility of our marketing. Correct? Okay. So we could do it quickly, but we could also fall flat on our face and never even realize it, because that person just won't engage with us anymore. So the devil is in the details. It always has been in marketing, right? The danger is in the speed. So just because you can drive fast doesn't mean you don't need to be a professional driver. It's easier to drive fast, right? It's easier to drive fast. You know that, right? It's the one who has to slow down and go between the cones without hitting them that actually is more of a pro. So slowing down, looking at it, taking the time, and having that be an understanding of, that's the other problem too, is we have an executive problem in not in this country, in all countries dealing with AI, right? They believe that volume equals success. I will show you unequivocally, you can go crank out AI generated content today and try and make it rank in Google, and it will fail. I mean, graphs of every single, GA and analytics that will show you it'll perform real quick, because Google likes to see the content creation. Then they realize it was all AI, and boom. And you don't come back usually from that stuff. Like, you don't get a second chance. You were essentially in their mind trying to game the system by pressing the easy button. They want to know you really are about the topics you're about. They want to know you're connected to it. They want to know that you're referenceable and real. The future is in human authored content, validated. So we know the real people behind the content. The written by team doesn't work anymore. That's going the way of the dodo. So I think there's a lot that we can better ourselves as marketers using this technology, but please be careful with it. You can really, really, really screw yourself badly. That's a technical term in marketing. That you should be judicious in your utilization of it. Creativity abound, but be judicious. The boring, dull stuff you can definitely automate. You can definitely make it do, so that your creativity can now be spent in ways, shapes, and forms that allow you to take the best parts of you and why you're so valuable, which, by the way, AI is not replacing tomorrow, and double down on that.
So would you be saying then, Stephan, that basically the human in the mix then is going to be the custodian of the trust that the customer's looking for? It feels like it, doesn't it? It's almost that they are the bridge between the AI that's going to give you the first 2 or 3 drafts or whatever, if we're just talking about content here, and then the human who wants to actually believe, and they want to know that this was a human, not a machine, that created it. So the human there, the marketer, probably the tactical marketer, campaign manager, whatever, they are the ones who then are the custodian of that relationship still, because they always were. But even though there's AI is kind of back office, front office is the marketer. Is that probably the best way to position it?
Yes, I think that's definitely the way. I've always said this, and we really have to think about what AI is versus what LLMs are versus, like, all these things get kind of mixed up in our terminology. Not to say you're doing that, Neil, but just to say, like, in general, we don't set ground rules, and unfortunately we've conflagrated them, just like we do electric vehicle and autonomous driving. A Tesla is, right? It's an electric vehicle. It has autonomous driving, but not all Teslas have autonomous driving. Not all autonomous vehicles are Teslas. So we've made that same conflagration with AI, LLM, and kind of like, there are skills based, there's agents, there's many things that can come and find their way in these places. What I think is it's an enhancement, it's an endoskeleton. It allows you to be more effective at the things you can do and do more potentially. But again, with any new technology, right? Gunpowder, I guess, was probably used in the heyday of gunpowder, and a lot of people blew themselves up. It's probably, sure. I don't have to go look that up in a book. I know that's the same thing with AI. People will go and say, I did this. We're seeing it anyway. Lawyers that are citing cases that don't exist. They don't test stuff. Anything that feels synthetic, frankly, we're getting used to. People are calling out videos that they now see. And it's hard. I have to explain to my parents, like, no, that never really happened. See, look, all the cameras in the photo have the same image. The angles aren't any different. That's too much for them to, like, they're not going to notice that sort of stuff. So we're at a place where I would say you really have to think about, I would actually, instead of going wide, which you can definitely go wide in terms of like what we talked about, creating pages, personalized pages, doing all that stuff. And I think more of that personal web experience will come. By the way, I'm not an avid reader, but there is one book I happen to have read called Being Digital by Nicholas Negroponte. He was the head of the MIT lab in 1994. He predicted the coming of high-speed internet, and that the user would define the medium, right? This is like the Nostradamus of technology, right? I would highly recommend anyone goes back and reads that and contextualizes how that works, because a lot of his concepts are still very true to this day. So will there be a personalized web? Will there be something where we can do that? Sure. And I think there'll be value to that, right? Of course, we don't know what that means, from the horrible, 1, privacy issues, 2, advertisements, 3, frankly, like loss of humanity and algorithms that kind of take hold, like social media, right? How much will your web experience be that, right? Just a bunch of, and as I said, there's decision fatigue. There's a reason why Steve Jobs always wore the same thing. He just didn't, and I'm not saying, but Steve said there were too many, the signal to noise ratio was off, right? There's more noise than there are signal, and you need to define what the signals are, not the noise. And noise is a plentiful, and we've just made it really easy to make noise, right? Like I said, anybody can build a MySpace page. So it's like, it's open season for content creation and nonsense to be thrown on the web and so forth. But you can see a counterculture aspect of what's occurring now. You can see that Gemini is starting to tag images with watermarks that are not evident to the user, so that as this AI content gets disseminated, there'll be a way to kind of pull it back and say, this was AI generated and so forth. We're seeing that watermark exist in most LLMs and the creation of content. I think we're going to see the same thing in video, and are seeing that to some degree. I think that's going to be, copyright is going to drive a lot of that, right? Concerns about copyright and legality is going to drive a lot of that. So we will see, hopefully, in the United States, our very decrepit old Congress folks, sorry guys, it's the reality, finally come to terms with what Facebook is, let alone what AI is, and that we're going to need to put some laws in place in order to not just let this stuff go buck wild. But again, depth, I would say, Neil, depth. So I'll give an example. I have a client in the mental health space. They have mental health clinics. They have a grief page. Their grief page has different things on it, bullet points, after they talk about grief counseling and so forth. And those grief counseling can say something like PTSD, trauma, sudden grief, losing a parent, losing a child, losing a pet. Okay. Does anyone believe that the those 3 bullet points, 4 bullet points don't equal an entire universe for someone. So if I found that page, has that really done enough to make me feel that you get me? People don't shop around for therapists, right? They're not going to go and say, well, let me sit with this one for 2 or 3 sessions. Then I'll go to another one. Then I'll go to another one. And by the time I get to my 5th, I'll figure it. No, you will have spent 5 weeks, 10 weeks doing that and not getting anywhere with a therapist, right? Because you keep changing them. So everyone will lose a parent, unfortunately, in their lives. Hopefully not everyone loses a child. Less natural. Do we not believe we should probably broach those with 2 different languages? Do we not believe that those deserve their own pages rather than bullet points? Let's take it even further. What about the pet one? That's weird. People who have pets understand the loss of a pet. People who don't actually have a stigma against it. Why can't you get over the fact that your dog died? Right? So all of a sudden, if you can't get over that for a long period of time, there's a stigma associated. So why don't we write 3 articles? How to talk to your kids about losing a pet. Second one might be an article about when too much grief is too much and you should seek help. The third is about the stigma about pet loss and why you're not alone. It's normal to feel how you feel, right? We built these 3 articles, right? SEO would say, go research that. Let's find the keywords people type into the search engine and let's speak to that language. Absolutely. I'm not opposed to that. But what if I, as the SEO, told you, and don't tell anyone, for those listening, I'm getting very close to the screen. Here's a secret, so lean in. I don't give a shit if they rank. Now, why would I say that in SEO, right? Because it's helpful content. Now, the question is, just because it was validated with data through a channel doesn't mean that it has to perform in said channel. We understood an aspect of humanity. People express themselves this way. When they talk about pet loss, oftentimes they talk about dog. If you don't mention dog, you won't rank, blah, blah, blah. Great. We should still probably talk about dogs. They're not talking about fish, right? No one is typing in, I lost my fish. I'm having pet grief over the loss of my fish, right? So we know enough to know enough that we should talk about a dog, talk about a cat, do these things, right? Okay, now where's the audience that needs that information? Here's an idea. Why don't you take your therapy clinic, draw a 20-mile / I don't know how many kilometer radius around it, and find every animal hospital and every veterinarian in the area. I don't think they have anything to provide people who lose a pet aside from the ashes potentially and a hug. Print that stuff out, give them a digital version, and say, we've written this content for our website because we have clients who have these needs. We figure there'll be clients of yours that might need this help, not necessarily coming to us, but they might need to talk to their kids. They might need to recognize when grief is too much. They might feel alone in their grief. We just figured this would be helpful. Wow, I just took something offline. Shocking. Online helped me figure it out, right? But like, we're marketers, damn it. Stop worrying so much about like the LLM and whether or not you rank in it. And by the way, let's get the executives to recognize that too. You're a business. Not all businesses are online only. And many businesses still require, we all live our lives outside of online, believe it or not, even though our faces are in these screens all the time and these screens. But the reality is there still is life outside the internet. So why aren't we focusing and solving people's problems and going deeper into the issues? But no, it's a grief page, just about grief therapy. So we'll leave it the way it is with 5 bullet points.
So this is the moment then that the concept of thought leadership has come of age, is what you're saying, because it's almost, we've been waiting, and I've been banging the thought leadership drum from a marketing perspective for decades, it feels now.
Yep.
Because to me, it's just such logical sense. You find your rails and you stay within them, because then you are the expert, you are the specialist, you are the one who is going to be the go-to. But it now sounds like the assistants want it, the agents want it, the humans actually all along wanted it, but we just didn't serve them with it. This is the moment that all comes together.
So remember the easy button analogy, right? Whatever. But like, okay, Neil and I both have the same access. Sure, he pays more for Claude, or I pay for more tokens, or X, Y, or Z, right? But the reality is we have the same machine. We have the same internet. We have the same MySpace capabilities. We have the same thing at our disposal. So if he presses the button or I press the button, he gets more intricate with his prompts, or I get more intricate in my prompts. The paintings look more defined in one case than in the other, but in reality, they're both still paintings, correct? Okay. So we're kind of trapped in our medium. Except the one difference is actually is the actual content, like the production of it. If it's all publicly available stuff, then this will probably revert to the same kinds of information. So what he creates and I create will probably be to some degree similar. The wisdom lives within your companies. The wisdom lives within your humans. The wisdom lives within your knowledge base. The wisdom lives within something as simple as, how many times has a lawyer in your company told you you can't publish that? Great. That red tape is actually wisdom. What do I mean? Take every single email. Now, don't actually do this without being allowed to do this because I don't want anyone to get fired for it. But in all reality, this is how simple it should be. You take every email from that lawyer that's given you some information about why you couldn't publish a certain piece and what the reason was, and you actually put it into a project in Claude, and you then use that or a custom GPT or any of the multitudes of ways you could use it, and you create yourself a little guide, a little pseudo lawyer that takes all of that information that's not public and doesn't live anywhere and honestly was just a back and forth between you and a lawyer, but now plus your brand guidelines that are like this thick if you were to print them all out, and you throw those in there and you throw another concoction, well, you have a very unique, specific set of data. That data can then be used by you as a marketer to not waste your time, or a content writer, to not waste your time in a back and forth. In fact, you could say cite any time that this has not broken the rules, meaning it identifies, hey, Neil, the lawyer, Neil Esquire, I know you've talked about this, this, and this previously, so I made sure not to include those. I did focus on this, this, and this. What are the odds Neil's going to rubber stamp that, in all fairness? No offense to the lawyers out there, but you know half the time it's a touch your finger, put it in the air, and whichever way they're feeling that day, they either let it go or they don't. Enough liability, not enough liability. 9 times out of 10, you're not breaking all the rules in what you're sending through. So the reality is that was something as simple as internal data. How much wisdom? That was just a set of emails. Think about all the wisdom. Think about how much Neil could teach you about thought leadership and how many lessons he probably has in his head that he's never written down. Right? Now, if he builds a repository of that information, if he goes to the LLMs and asks them to ask him probing questions, and he starts recording and he starts creating this compendium of the stuff he's known. And I was saying to him earlier before we even started the show, I am finally at the point in my gray hairs that I have forgotten more than other people have learned in my industry. That is a blessing and a curse because I forget that other people don't know that. So I haven't taken the time. And if you're younger and you're starting out, I would say to you, build your vault. Build your vault of thoughts. Build your vault of ideas. Build your vault of experiences at work. Journal. Put these things somewhere. They will become unique content someday that you will call upon, whether you need an LLM as a friend, as a pseudo therapist, or you actually want advice from one, or in all fairness, you want to build content that's meaningful to other people that have gone through similar experiences. It is available to you to do that, but unless you get it out of your brain, it won't happen. I'm also very shocked, by the way, Neil, to your point. There are too many service companies like consulting and so forth that are scared. They are scared of showing off their people. They're scared of you go to the About Us page and there might be a few photos. There's not even a full bio page for these people, or it puts a pop-up with a little bio that doesn't have a unique URL for them. So if you were to search that person's name with the company, I have a company whose board of directors includes a CIO of a major airline and they don't have a page devoted to them.
That's incredible.
Was someone excited to put out that press release when it happened? Hell yeah. Are we not prompting that person to create content or asking them or interviewing them or doing anything? Why did they even join the board? Has anyone taken the time to do that? No. Right? So, like, it's there for the taking, guys. It really is. I promise you. You can get distracted by the shiny objects, and I guarantee you the executives are going to push you to do that because it's called marketing by blog, and it's ridiculous. And if you did that, by the way, you must have some great Amazon recipes for voice search, because I was told voice search was going to kill search. Just like I was told AMP would kill search and mobile would kill search. And I mean, I can go back literally decades and pull every single time that I was told SEO was going to die. And I love it because it made me be able to recognize that, no, the art of searching is human. It's a need that people will express themselves in different ways, whether it's to an AI, LLM, agent, whatever. There still will be a need to find. And optimization, which is the letter that you'll notice commonly sits in AEO, GEO, AIO. They all have the O, right? Which is the verb of optimization. So it's not, I achieved this rank, I got this traffic, I did this thing, woo, we're done. Who sells someone something once? Like, the reality is, if you're working at something, then it's a process, and that's habitual. And optimization is something you're looking to improve. So improve it. Look at what you already have and improve it. You don't have to go much further than that.
Wow, Stephan. I mean, honestly, you've uncovered some truths. You've kind of put us on a straight and narrow. You've kind of told us to go deep. In whatever industry we're in.
I'm full of it, but I'm just giving this is what my life experience has brought me to. So maybe it's out of frustration, maybe it's out of experience. I don't know.
But that mixture of both, and I think, we're all going to be embracing that mixture because it is potent. It really is. What should somebody do next as the next step then? If you were to kind of be guiding with all of what's been said, and say, okay, here's your kind of almost the ultimate recipe for kind of taking these next sort of few months, because let's face it, we don't know the next few years how it's going to play out. So just for the next few months, here's the recipe. So we've given you some guidance here. What would be the first big step, would you suggest, that somebody should focus on?
Okay, so there's not much like spandex. Everyone can wear it, but it doesn't mean it looks good on everyone. So let's be clear on what I'm about to say. Because of that, I would say set the stage first. What are you in? Define what you're in. Are you in a company where executives drive all the initiatives, and then you're not an executive, therefore your world is limited to what you can and can't do? Are you the only marketer in an organization? Are you the CMO? These will drive the kinds of decisions you'll then do. What I think a safe thing to say is look at a few things fairly quickly. So, one, I would look at how well do we understand the problems of our target audience? Do we capture that anywhere in the business that I don't have access to? So, one, sales calls, are they recorded? If they are recorded, get access to the recordings, the transcriptions and the recordings. Listen to a few of them so you can become accustomed to what you should be listening to. Listen to them on a commute, do whatever, but listen, hear how the person expresses their problem, understand that. Then I might take a bunch of those transcripts, throw them into an LLM if I'm allowed to, or word clouding system or something that can identify the frequencies, things that are happening more frequent than not. Okay, now I'm starting to understand and I'm building that. Then the next thing I would do once I understand my audience well and their needs is I'd critically look at my web assets, not my website, my web assets as a whole. And I say, have I built the solutions that map to those problems? Not sell. Have I built the solution? If you sell, I don't know who's out there asking to be sold to, but I know a lot of people are asking to be solved. So are you actually, and this applies double in B2B selling. So you really think, am I solving it, or is this just more marketing fluff that doesn't really say anything, much like AI content, but sounds smart, right? People are attuned to that. That's not going to fly. So what is the real problem they're having, and are you able to solve that? And if they really want to know more about that, could they find more? If they did look for more, specifically about your brand plus the pricing, your brand plus a feature, your brand, what would they find if they went and searched that? Would it be you guys answering that question or someone else? If someone else is it even accurate? Right? So I would do an audit of that sort of thing. The next thing I'd also think about is my customer side of the house. So people treat it as a funnel, but that's a fallacy. It's actually an hourglass, and all of the sand falls to the bottom. Why do I say that? Because we have forgotten in our marketing world, we think that it's get an MQL to an SQL. And once the sales qualified lead comes through, we're done. No, because guess what? Unless you're in the market, like I said, to sell something to a person one time, that's a no-no. We want that person to go back and talk at dinner, refer us, say something to someone else, buy from us again, right? So what happens post-acquisition? Go to your customer service logs, the chats. What are things people complain most about? What are the ways that we answer those complaints? What are the things people often say they're happy with? Do we even use those as value propositions when we talk about our products, right? When people say they're leaving, do we have the information as to why, right? Are we aware of our Achilles heels? These are all things that you want to bring into your understanding. And once you have that, now go back to the web assets and say, are we fulfilling this? Are we doing this? Where could we? And start small. Start small. Okay, I noticed that sales needs X. They don't have industry pages, but they sell to industries. What are the problems those industries have? Well, I've got all the sales calls for every call we had with that industry. Let me go look and see what's common about that. Let me interview the salesperson and ask them. Cool. By the way, that interview with a salesperson, we might be able to turn into a blog. You know what that blog could do? If we ask them about the main problems that their consumer is having, let's say in a B2B, the main problem their consumer is having, and let's say it's a 3 to 6 month sales cycle, what does that rep do once they've had the call with them, the discovery, the this, the that, they've done a demo? What do they do after that? Okay, well, if they can call back to, hey, you know what, Neil, you mentioned that you were really worried about adoption of these kinds of products. Funny enough, we actually have an article about how we work on adoption with our customers to ensure that multiple users use this. And since you don't pay by seat, let's say for software, it diversifies your cost. Wow, I didn't realize that. So you've worked with other departments? Yeah, in fact, I have another article that talks about how this helps a product team. I know you don't sit on the product team, but do you have access to those guys? Because we could absolutely talk about some use cases of how this product could be used there. Oh, I didn't even realize that. Well, see, it was so shocking. Even I threw myself backwards. But all of a sudden, you have this capability to do something and change the dynamics and help another group. Is anyone looking to replace the guy that does that, the woman who's able to perform that act in the company? No, they're praising you. So again, I know that was a lot. He asked for a little framework. I give you a dissertation. That's kind of how I work. My apologies, folks. It's also why AI is able to do a great job of syncing these things, summarizing and making me palpable in that regard. But, I really do think that this is a massive opportunity for all of us. We just have to stop being scared, remember what it means to be a marketer, and approach that with the same internal marketing you're going to have to do, by the way, as you would external. So that's the other piece that I want to make sure we hit on. Do not take any of these actions without getting the buy-in to try and get people to sponsor these things. And sponsor doesn't mean spend more money, but it does mean getting people on board as to why we're trying these things. Not everything's going to be a success, but we're trying and we're learning. The business has never done this before. Remind them that. Show them progress. Show them attempts. Show them what goes into it. Make them start learning that it isn't just pushing a button and sending an email with the result. Oh, yeah, now I understand that when Stephan spends 4 hours wrestling with a PDF that we come out with, it was 4 hours. It wasn't just press a button and get a PDF, right? And the more they're aware of what goes into the making of the sausage, the more they're going to be apt for understanding that while this technology is great, it also requires a lot of manipulation in order to make it effective.
There we go. And AI will be our servant here, because we will get you've just prompted me there to remember to do a summary for the listeners and the viewers of that little kind of moment, because there was a framework there. Deep inside that storytelling, there was a framework. So I want to
be sure to send it to me.
I'll send it to you so you can follow along yourself. There we go.
Oh, yeah, it'd be great to have that framework. That sounded really good. No, I mean,
We'll do it.
I try to apply that as much as possible with folks. So, always happy to help.
Amazing. Stephan, I want to connect people with you, or at least give people a chance to see more of your work. So where should they go?
Sure. So there's probably 3 places that are most appropriate. I'd say number 1, my organization, Vibe Logic. We're an agency that helps companies understand, large and small, by the way, helps companies understand what their visibility looks like across LLMs, across search engines, and really thinking more about what is that content we kind of talked about today that really resonates and how people are searching or expressing need, I should say. So there's that, Vibe Logic. You can email me through there. Otherwise, my social drug of choice, LinkedIn. So I know y'all won't pronounce Stephan Bajaio as cleanly as Neil did, but I'm sure he'll put a link to my LinkedIn. Otherwise, it's StephanBajaio. Feel free to look me up in Google too. You will find, probably ranking number 1, or you should, a website that I still need to update. Apologies, but feel free to look me up there. You'll find StephanBajaio.com. There's a lot of my old work and my speaking and all sorts of stuff. I've been talking about this concept since before AI was really mainstream. So hopefully it's helpful. My modus operandi is, if I'm not helping people, I'm just selling stuff, and I'm not really in the business of selling stuff. Don't worry, I don't mind taking payment, but I do really appreciate helping folks. So if there are ways I can help, by all means, reach out. Please don't sell to me. I have enough people in LinkedIn doing that right now, a plentiful. In fact, I think that's why the other inbox exists to this day. But in the meantime, I'm always happy to help people in whatever way I can, and hopefully that turns into partnerships and other things. But Neil, thank you so much for having me today. This has been a pleasure, and I hope I've been able to help people.
Oh, Stephan, you've just defined what thought leadership actually is. I think with your comments and your wisdom, and this has been a really, really fascinating conversation, I'm sure. And I'll thank everybody, or thank you on behalf of everybody, because I have no doubt you've really got people thinking. So Stephan Bajaio, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.